That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's go through. Let's recap what we had with these week 6 games. Honestly, some of these games were kind of disappointing. I mean, that Chargers game, I was looking for a lot more from Keenan Allen, looking for a lot more from Mike Williams. Regardless, I think that we had a fantastic week this week. Very excited to talk about this recap. But of course, you know what we have to do before that? We have to give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats for the people subscribed to the channel who went down there, dropped a like on the last video, and left a comment at the same time. So, you know, we're going to be giving away hats every single video. So just make sure you go down there, subscribe to the channel, drop that like, and leave a comment. Our first winner coming out from Bobby Brown says, I am taking a gamble starting Khalil Herbert this weekend as a sleeper pick. A fill-in, either I will end up like a genius or a fool. He could get 15 to 20 carries and 2 to 4 targets. Well, that aged nicely. Great call on that one, my friend. And then our other winners coming out from Paul, who says, a 5-0 with CMC going to the IR. Rest that hammy. Need you week 10. My friend, I hope that you're now 6-0. And of course, if you're getting Christian McCaffrey back in a few weeks, that'll be fantastic. But yeah, I think that should be it. Let's go through and let's talk about this recap. And let's start it off with some running backs here. Now, we're going to be going back all the way to Thursday night because we cannot get away from talking about the running back one so far in week 6 in Leonard Fournette. Now, here with Leonard Fournette, I mean, not only was he the running back one in week 6 against the Philadelphia Eagles, but at the same time, this is now back-to-back weeks, almost 3 weeks in a row, if we're going to be honest, that Leonard Fournette has completely phased out Ronald Jones. And I'm going to be the first one to admit, with Leonard Fournette here, I mean, when we had that first performance with 20 rushes, I was not really buying into it just based on what we had with Bruce Arians last year. I mean, deciding to go through, make Leonard Fournette a healthy scratch, give the ball to Ronald Jones, then bring in Leonard Fournette, give him some workload, then go right back to Ronald Jones. I mean, it was really confusing. It was extremely hard to project these running backs week to week. And what I really want to point out is the fact that, I mean, we were looking at this next matchup against the Eagles. I mean, I was a little bit worried about Giovanni Bernard coming back to this offense because as soon as we saw him back in week 4 take over as that primary running back in New England, and we really saw him for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting every single touch in that game. I mean, I was, yes, excited, but looking also at the fact that Giovanni Bernard missed that week and saying, well, with Gio coming back, Gio will get some of these targets in this passing offense. So we want to be lowering down Leonard Fournette in our expectations. And yeah, there's no other way to say it than I was flat out wrong. I mean, with Leonard Fournette here, this is a running back that in week 6 had 22 carries, which 22 carries, yes, that's fantastic. But what you really like to see is you like to see 6 receptions out of this backfield at the same time. He essentially had 30 touches in this offense. Now, I'll say over the next few weeks, he has tough matchups against the Chicago Bears and the New Orleans Saints. But, I mean, this is still a running back that now looks like he is a bell cow running back on one of the best offenses in football. Y'all know every single week I go through and I update our rest of season rankings on Patreon. So we'll most likely update those rankings over there on Patreon Monday night, Tuesday morning for y'all. And you can better believe you're expecting Leonard Fournette to take a significant step up. Now, our next running back was actually the running back 3 this week in Joe Mixon. And here the lesson learned is Joe Mixon is back. Joe Mixon is looking like the running back we wanted him to be coming into fantasy drafts this season. This is a running back that, speaking of Giovanni Bernard, we were excited based on the idea that he can take that Giovanni Bernard workload in the Cincinnati Bengals passing offense. He comes out, he sees 18 carries and 94 rushing yards. But what's more important with Joe Mixon is the fact that he gets 6 targets out of this backfield. Now, keep in mind, I mean, I was a little bit hesitant in trying to project that for Joe Mixon, and that if you're looking at the middle part of the season, let's take out the week against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 4, given the fact that he did hurt his ankle at the end of the game. Let's also take out week 5, given the fact that clearly he was not 100%. You had a significant workload for Samaje Perine. But still, outside of those 2 weeks, in week 3, he only had 1 target out of the backfield. In week 2, he had 2 targets. Week 1, he had 4. So, the usage was trending in the incorrect direction. But for him to get 6 targets out of the backfield here, I'll say, well, we had some other running backs getting some usage. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the week. Still, Joe Mixon, very encouraging. And what did we talk about for so long this offseason? We talked about this Cincinnati Bengals offense being way better than most people were assuming, Given the addition of Jamar Chase, knowing how Jamar Chase was going to stretch the field and allow more space underneath for these running backs, and at the same time, just for Joe Burrow to be able to easily pick up first downs, and that this offensive line would be better than last year with a few key members returning from injury, and with this overall young unit just getting a little more experience. So yeah, I mean, I think we're really liking what we see from Joe Mixon right now. Hopefully, he can keep up this workload in the receiving game. Now, our next lesson learned is exactly what we've been talking about for a very long time. Now, y'all know Alexander Madison versus Dalvin Cook. This was a situation we were looking at coming into the season. We were saying Dalvin Cook, top 5 running back when healthy. Alexander Madison, top 10 running back when Dalvin Cook is down. And then all of a sudden, we had Dalvin Cook go down. I went, okay, well, Alexander Madison, top 10 running back. A lot of people wanted to scream at me for that. A lot of people were saying, oh, Mason, we haven't seen it before, even though we clearly had, even though we outlined the games where we had seen that from Alexander Madison. Then we get a couple spike weeks from Alexander Madison with no Dalvin Cook. And even though that's what you would expect, a lot of people all of a sudden thought it was going to be a running back by committee, and we had to say, no. I mean, clearly this will be a situation where Dalvin Cook is getting every single touch out of this backfield when he is healthy. It's exactly what we had this week against the Carolina Panthers when the Minnesota Vikings put up approximately 2 billion points. Here you actually had Dalvin Cook with 29 carries, 140 rushing yards at the same time, 2 receptions out of this backfield. So Dalvin Cook had over 30 touches this week. And if you're going to be looking at Alexander Madison, this is a running back that in turn, I mean, had 3. He had 3 carries. I almost need to go through and double check to see if Alexander Madison left this game early with an injury, because, I mean, it's kind of funny to see the stark drop off where I'm not going to lie. I mean, I kind of wanted to sit here and think that Alexander Madison could get 8 targets in this game. I mean, 8 touches in this game. But clearly, just like we said coming into the week, if Dalvin Cook is active, you start Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin Cook is inactive, you start Alexander Madison. Do not try to convince yourself into playing Madison, and really do not try to convince yourself that this is going to be a committee by any stretch of the imagination. Now, our next lesson learned is also something that we beat into the ground this past week, that Myles Gaskin is not a running back that you can start in fantasy football. This is someone that was the running back 41 this week. He had 5 carries for 9 yards out of the backfield. He had 6 targets out of this backfield, but only converting that to 2 receptions and 5 receiving yards. Now with Myles Gaskin, what did we say a week ago after the pop performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We said if you were looking at the usage for Myles Gaskin, where he literally had 10 carries or more in one game so far this season, one game through 6 weeks, he's had 10 carries or more. I mean, really the only value that you had, the exclusive value that you had, was the usage in the receiving game. We said he was the exact same as Nyheim Hines, the exact same as J.D. McKissic, not any more than that. And honestly, I know that a lot of people want to come out here and say, oh, cut Myles Gaskin because he was very disappointing with only 3 weeks. I think we're just going to stand by exactly what we had coming into the week. I mean, with J.D. McKissic, yes, he had a very strong performance because you had the Washington football team getting behind against the Chiefs, and he actually had 10 targets out of his backfield. I know you had Antonio Gibson leaving for a short duration, but still, the point is, I mean, with these running backs, they're the exact same player. If their offenses get down big at the beginning of the game, they'll have a ton of usage in the receiving game. Outside of that, there's no upside for them to be 3-down players. So don't cut Myles Gaskin. You just have to have realistic expectations on who he is in this Miami Dolphins offense. Now, our next lesson learned is it looks like Aaron Jones is going to continue to get touches taken away from A.J. Dillon. Or if you're looking at A.J. Dillon this week, well, yes, he only had about 6 fantasy points in this offense. Still, I mean, you're seeing yet another week with over 10 touches in Chicago. Now, if you're going to be looking at this against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, I mean, A.J. Dillon, 16 carries. Against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, you had A.J. Dillon with 16 touches. In week 5 against Cincinnati, you had A.J. Dillon with 12 touches. This past week, you get him with 11 touches in this offense, 59 rushing yards. I mean, keep in mind that, yes, tough matchup against the Chicago Bears, so maybe you're expecting the Aaron Jones production to go down for that reason. Now, Aaron Jones still had a very effective day from a fantasy football standpoint just because this is a running back that we've discussed He's the running back getting the usage in the receiving game as well as the usage in the red zone. As long as that red zone role is still there for Aaron Jones, that's going to make him an elite running back in Green Bay. Where, yeah, I mean, he sees 13 carries to A.J. Dillon's 11. But it's very similar to what you had with Aaron Jones versus Jamal Williams over the past few years, where you have Aaron Jones getting every target out of the backfield. Aaron Jones also coming away with the touchdown. So he's the more valuable running back at the end of the day. I still want to at least acknowledge that A.J. Dillon is in year 2. A.J. Dillon is continuing to expand his role in this offense. So maybe you're looking at A.J. Dillon as a running back that can eventually work his way into a small role in the red zone, which could cut into Aaron Jones. I'm not saying to panic on Aaron Jones right now. I'm just saying that we need to continue to monitor the situation with what we are going to have with these two running backs. Now, our next lesson learned is going to be going over to the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're learning here that Darrell Williams is not splitting this backfield with Jerick McKinnon. That is 100% Darrell Williams and his workload. I mean, you actually had 24 touches for Darrell Williams this past week. The efficiency was not good at all, where you only had 21 carries for 62 rushing yards. He came away with 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 receptions, 27 receiving yards. So as long as Darrell Williams does have the red zone role in this offense, and at the same time, you're looking at him having the usage in the receiving game, you are 100% viewing Darrell Williams as a must-start running back any given week, knowing how many points Kansas City will be able to put up on the board. And if you're going to be looking at this past week from Darrell Williams had more touches this past week than Clyde Edwards-Helaire had in any game in 2021 so far. So I think Darrell Williams, if you were looking at him going forward, you probably have to at least put him in a similar tier to what you had with Clyde Edwards-Helaire from a week-to-week standpoint. While Darrell Williams definitely not as talented as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, doesn't really matter if the workload is going to be just right with what he had in a great offense, if not a little bit better. Now let's go over to the wide receiver position, and let's start it off with CeeDee Lamb with the blow up week. Now with CeeDee Lamb, I mean, very impressive. Not much to say here. 30 fantasy points. I mean, we were pretty much telling everybody you had to start CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper any given week, despite the matchup with it being tough against the New England Patriots, just because with this Dallas Cowboys offense, I mean, this is an offense that's going to be putting up a ridiculous amount of points regardless of their opponent. And you actually get 11 targets in this offense for CeeDee Lamb, but 9 receptions, 149 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns to go along with it. Obviously, you love this from Lamb. I mean, this doesn't change much in that CeeDee Lamb was already a must-start running back for you every single week. So maybe you just get a little bit more excited about in the floor-ceiling combination that you were going to have. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb looks fantastic in Dallas. Now, our next lesson learned is when Mason tells you to start Jaylen Waddle, we are starting Jaylen Waddle. Where y'all know a week ago, I actually went through and said he was a must-start wide receiver against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once you had Devontae Parker and Will Fuller ruled out. We said the same exact thing against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. I mean, didn't really work out against Tampa where, I mean, he only came away with 6 targets. I don't even want to say the rest of the stat line, but against Jacksonville, a fantastic wide receiver, 13 targets with Tua Tagovailoa coming back in. I know a lot of people want to focus in on the addition of Tua to this offense. I think it's hard to say that you're going to see this same type of volume just because the quarterback is Jaylen Waddle's former collegiate teammate. I think it's more so based on the idea that you had no Will Fuller, you had no Devontae Parker. They had to get the ball to someone. 13 targets, 10 receptions, 70 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns at the same time. Very happy for our call that we had with Jaylen Waddle. Extremely happy that that smashed because we told so many people to start him. Now, our next lesson learned is Tyler Boyd is no longer someone you can consider starting in fantasy. We kind of called Tyler Boyd a sell high when you had T. Higgins coming back this past week. And it's because if you were looking at Tyler Boyd, I mean, clearly you saw that, I mean, the opportunity in this offense was trending in the wrong direction. If you were looking at Tyler Boyd with no T. Higgins in here, I mean, he was not active in weeks 2, 3, or 4. I'm sorry, T. Higgins did play in week 2. But if you're looking at weeks 3 and 4, when you did not have T. Higgins here, I mean, the stat line is you get 13 fantasy points, over 20 fantasy points in those 2 contests. I mean, whenever you do have T. Higgins in this offense, You get 1 fantasy point, 6 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points. I mean, you need to be avoiding Tyler Boyd everywhere you can when T. Higgins is coming in. I know that Jamar Chase came out and yet again, put up production to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense, as we said he was going to be this week. But I still want to remain by the fact that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are looking very similar with the opportunities and the roles that they have in this offense. And that you actually get 6 targets from Higgins this past week, 6 targets from Jamar Chase at the same time. Now, keep in mind, based on the average depth of target that you have for Jamar Chase, with him operating as a field-stretching wide receiver on this offense, you should naturally assume that he is going to have some more efficiency added on. But still, Higgins, a very promising performance. I think that probably still looking to sell Jamar Chase for T. Higgins plus an upgrade somewhere else if we can. Now, our next lesson learned is we have crushed Adam Thielen every single week, where y'all know Adam Thielen, we called him a do not draft player coming into the season. Then, after he performed at a high mark, we said, oh, he's a sell high. And then as soon as he has a couple down weeks with no touchdowns in this offense, knowing how dependent Adam Thielen will be on his usage in the red zone, we screamed that Adam Thielen was a must-start wide receiver this week. We screamed that he was a player that you were trying to trade for on the low. He comes out, he gets 13 targets in this offense. This has to be the highest mark that Adam Thielen has had in a very long time. 126 receiving yards, 11 receptions, and that Adam Thielen signature touchdown here at the same time. So I'm really excited with what we had from Adam Thielen. Coming into the year, this is not someone that we had in many leagues, but I think based on the week 4 or 5 performance, I've been kind of getting a lot of Adam Thielen owners scared for no reason at all. We were able to come in, we were able to buy at a low point and just ride out this Adam Thielen production going forward, because Thielen's the exact wide receiver he was coming into the season. There was no reason to panic. Another player that we were looking to buy low based on recent injuries comes out, and I know the fantasy production was not through the roof. It was still very encouraging, and I 100% want to be adding him on our buy low list yet again. TJ Hockenson. This is someone that we knew was disappointing in weeks 3 and 5 when he only had 2 and 3 targets in this offense. But if you're going to be looking at that, it's probably because this is a tight end that was dealing with the multitude of injuries essentially over the past month. He was listed as a game time decision in week 5. Really didn't even know if you were going to get him to play. And then in week 6, this is someone that we know is going to go a few days before kickoff. Yeah, he comes out 11 targets in this offense, 8 receptions, 74 receiving yards at the same time. Have to love what you have with TJ Hockenson. And in this video, we will talk about one tight end that we're including in our sell high list. And I think that now he's an even more appealing sell high. Hear me out. Noah Fant. Now, Noah Fant was fantastic this week. Y'all know this is a tight end that we were buying once you had the Jerry Jeudy injury. Now, with Jerry Jeudy coming back, I still think Jeudy is going to be resuming his role as the wide receiver 1 in Denver, and he will be taking targets from everyone, not just Tim Patrick, not just Courtland Sutton, but also Noah Fant. Now, with that being said, Noah Fant was fantastic this week with 11 targets in this offense, 9 receptions, 97 receiving yards at the same time. Really, you had pretty much everything going in the direction of Noah Fant here. And obviously, this is a tight end that was a very high prospect coming into the NFL, actually out of the same school as TJ Hockenson, both drafted in round 1. Really like what we have from Noah Fant overall. A big issue is you're just going to be looking at him and saying, well, this is a tight end that the offense isn't going to be fantastic. In Denver, you should expect the overall offense to regress. And at the same time, you're looking at Noah Fant saying he probably is going to be losing targets in this offense with Jerry Jeudy coming back in. Okay, so now let's go back to this Dallas Cowboys and New England Patriots game, because I want to discuss one thing really quick. And this is the usage for Ezekiel Elliott. And that I am taking away from this game that I know a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, Ezekiel Elliott splits the backfield with Tony Pollard, 17 carries to 10 carries. That's 100% something we need to be pointing out. However, something that's crazy to see, 9 targets for Ezekiel Elliott. Now, this is a high mark for Zeke. We actually saw this a few years ago in his NFL career, that he does have the capability to just be used in the receiving game just like this. Keep in mind, Dak Prescott did throw the ball 51 times in this game. So if you're looking at his target share, not that high. He's closing in on a 20% team target share. But with Amari Cooper, with CeeDee Lamb also getting a fair amount of volume in their own right, and still Ezekiel Elliott being able to command this type of usage in this offense, I think that's very encouraging going forward. I mean, even if you will have, Tony Pollard seeing just say 35% of the touches in this backfield, if Zeke is still getting those high value touches, he's still someone you're playing every single week. Now, thank you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. And yeah, when you leave that comment, subscribe to the channel, drop that like, you get entered into win a Fantasy Flock Network hat every single time you do that. And I believe that's all I got for y'all. Of course, if you want to go support the show on Patreon, if you want to go get a podcast of your team, if you want to go get rest of season rankings, you can find that in the description of the video. And that's all I got for y'all. And I hope you have a great day.